Hey guys, so I think we are probably live right now. If anybody can just let me know that we're going here and that you guys can hear me. And then once I get the you guys can hear me sign, we'll start getting into some questions. Okay, so I'm getting some. We're all good. So just let me know, guys, if the sound doesn't work or if we have any issues. Hopefully everything will be smooth today. And that the internet will be smooth. I know last time the picture was quite choppy. All right, so see some familiar people here. Thanks for tuning in. Hope everyone's been doing well. Definitely a crazy time for for the world, for the U.S. Some great news on the vaccine, which if it's really 90% effective, that's amazing news for the world and for the United States. And crazy election stuff. The reason I took sort of a week and a half off was I just didn't feel like talking about Pokemon at all because there's just with the election in the United States and other things going on, I just felt like that was a lot more important, and that talking about Pokemon just felt like fake and weird when I didn't care about it all during those times. So, yeah. So, but happy to be back now and happy to get into some topics with you all. So I'm gonna start from just the top here. So Crypto Cannabis asks, in Logan Paul's live stream yesterday, he said he was through with buying Pokemon cards and investing in the hobby. Wonder what perception of influence it will bring to the market, considering the 2 to 3 times rise in prices since his box breaks. Any thoughts? Also love the content here. Thank you so much for putting in the time and effort to create this for us. You're welcome. Happy to do it. It's been really enjoyable for me to talk this much about Pokemon and have a channel and meet a bunch of people to do it for. So now it looks like the video's choppy. Ugh. Why does this keep happening, guys? It's so irritating. Come on. So I restarted the internet to see if that will make a difference. Okay, hopefully it's smooth now. Okay, we'll give that a try. It looks like so far at least it's smoother. Yeah, I'm having like internet issues at my house. I am gonna be moving in a month and a half or so, and we're gonna be getting like really good internet because both my girlfriend and I will be using the internet a lot for our jobs and working from home. So that will also benefit this stream, hopefully. Sweet. Okay, so yeah, so the stuff about Logan Paul. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I don't really know how people are going to respond. I know we've seen like pretty steep drops in some like unlimited cards, like the unlimited Charizard I heard about. Again, it's hard to know what's real right now. Like some of these prices might not have been real. Some of them might have been shill bid. So I would just be like really careful before. These cards, they trade in ranges. So I think one mistake I hear people make is when they see a card go for a certain price, they're like, that's the new price. That's the price that it goes for now. And I think it's better to think about these cards as selling within a price range. And so obviously like 50% drop is a huge drop. That's way too big. You want to look for like 20% maybe selling range, 10% selling range. But in a market like this, you're going to see huge swings because the prices are so all over the place, and we also had that huge intense growth. And those are all signs of very speculative markets that are not very good investable, like stable investable times to buy, because we can see this happen. We can see, emotions are driving it up and laddering it up, and emotions can drive and ladder it down, just like I've been talking about it on this channel for a few months. So we're gonna have to see how people like react, and I wouldn't panic. I'm certainly not panicked about any of that. I think that 40 to 50% drops in lots of cards would make a lot of sense. And wouldn't mean like we're gonna the vast majority of the market is gonna leave, or these sorts of things. You have to understand that like it's a few like very intense people could just be driving a lot of this. There also could be a lot of manipulating the prices up, shill bidding. I would just be really careful either buying in this market and or selling in this market. I think selling, and I've been talking to a number of my friends about selling, who have been looking to sell their cards or thinking about selling portions of their cards. And, we have a lot of conversations about how difficult it is to also sell in this environment, because things are so all over the place. To even define what's really fair market value for these things is very difficult. So when things like that happen, it creates a difficulty in I think in illiquidity, in even increased illiquidity, because there aren't really good established prices that things can keep sort of comfortably selling at, or what you're going to get if you sell your cards, so if it's worth it or not to you to sell them. So I think that's another thing to keep in mind as prices go down. When they go down, is that that people will people may not want to sell also, because they're afraid of like throwing it into an auction and how low it might go, and that might slow some of the downward pressure. I think modern's it will be a disaster, to put it mildly, if it really, if the majority of the brand new people in the hobby kind of freak out and all want to sell their cards at once, modern will be you're going to see crazy huge drops in modern. I see people grading lots of cards that I don't think should have a value over the cost of the grading, and then they think their cards are worth like $50, $60, $70, $100. And those are the types of things that I worry about for people. I think that, your vintage stuff, even if we see retraces, as long as they're not like catastrophic retraces and totally shake the market, I think prices will be able to sort of establish themselves. We'll have hopefully what is a healthy correction, and then in the long term they'll sort of reestablish that slight upward trajectory that or slighter upward trajectory that we want to see over time. But yeah, it's gonna be a crazy the whole year. This whole year is a very unstable market. So what I would just tell you is, anyone, be careful listening to people who are saying that it's like very stable and prices are very stable and it's very like safe and not risky, those types of things. So JC asks, what are your thoughts in the drop in prices for PSA 9? I guess before going to that, I should say one thing on Logan Paul. So one thing I will say is like Logan Paul moving on to other things, or saying that he's like not that interested in Pokemon or not going to keep collecting in Pokemon. I wonder why he publicly said that and wanted people to know. I mean, I guess he shares everything, but like it's just interesting that he decided to publicly share it. I'm not exactly sure what that means, because I think he would have to know that would probably panic some people or scare some people. I don't know if it's like an image thing of him wanting to, he doesn't want to be branded the Pokemon guy, particularly if the Pokemon doesn't keep going up. Like if Pokemon starts to fall, he doesn't want to be blamed and branded the Pokemon guy. I don't really know, because I'm not sure that would work. It might just be like he's just being genuine, right? Like he was super into Pokemon. He has a personality that he like gets super passionate into things, and then he like quickly moves on to something else. He doesn't really stick in anything for that long. And he seems like, based on how he talks about himself and his content and other things over the years, that seems to be somewhat true, that he just gets passionate about things and moves on to the next thing. So that might just be what happened, right? He's just being totally genuine, and he's like, he lives publicly, he tells people like exactly what he's feeling and thinking, and everyone freaks out and reacts and behaves off of what he does. So that's all interesting. So JCS, what are your thoughts in the drop in prices for PSA 9 Charizards? Okay. Is this a minor market correction or the start of a slow decline in the bubble? I don't know how fast it's going to decline. I don't know what exactly it's going to mean. I mean, unlimited base, I've been saying for a while, including the holos, had the largest growth and the quickest growth, and seemed to be the most irrational growth to me, because I just know how many of those cards are out there and how many people are grading those cards. So even if there aren't that many like 9s and 10s, there's going to be tons and tons and tons of 6s, 7s, and 8s. And I think even like even bottom heavy, if there's so many of those, they may drag the prices down in 6s, 7s, and 8s. And if the prices get dragged on 6s, 7s, and 8s, I'm not sure people are going to be as willing to pay as much of a premium for 9s and 10s when they could just buy the 6s, 7s, and 8s. So those are things I don't hear anyone talking about that I would consider, is sort of like, yes, like people will pay premiums on 9s and 10s when there are a lot more 9s and 10s. A lot less 9s and 10s, but you have to be very careful, because if there are tons and tons of 6s, 7s, and 8s, someone like me, or a lot of people, and I'm like more probably hardcore than the vast majority of people in this hobby, and like 10s and 9s and things like that. But even someone like me, like I would never pay like way, way, way more for a 9 or 10 if I could get like a really nice looking 7 for an absolute fraction of the price. So you have to be careful about that, particularly in unlimited. I'm seeing tons of people send in limited stuff right now. So Matt Yagmas, hey, first of all, love you, man. Oh, thanks. Glad you're enjoying the channel. You're my favorite PokeTuber to watch. I appreciate that. Question, do you think that Japanese cards, Tops and Skyridge, are ever going to surpass their English counterparts in price? I don't. That would be very surprising. That would be a big change from what it is now. I think that I love the Japanese cards. They're really beautiful. Some of those sets, particularly if you can get like, and when we go into like the Nintendo EX area too, and these are some things that not everyone knows, is that actually the unlimited sometimes is actually rarer than the first edition. There's unlimited in first edition in Japanese, unlike in English. And so there are some cards that are like extremely rare, that have like only 1 or 3 or, in the pop, or none in the pop, these, PSA 10s. And so there's sort of a niche collector group that might really pay a lot for those cards. But outside of those really niche kind of, random things, in general, particularly if the pops are like fairly similar, English is going to be more popular, I think, for the foreseeable future. Now, is it impossible that everyone slowly over time shifts more to the Japanese? It's not impossible, but I wouldn't expect that. I think people like the cards that they grew up with, or they like to be able to read their cards over like maybe the coolness of the or the original sort of feel of the Japanese cards. Now, there are plenty of people who prefer the Japanese cards and just collect the Japanese, so that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that the majority of the market is more on that side of English and wanting to read it, I think. And that's really always been the case. I think it's shifting a little bit, and I think that it tends to be a funnel type thing where people start with the English and then they slowly kind of filter from that English to some more Japanese. I think generally in Japanese it's the unique artworks that to me that I really wanted to collect and stood out. The Japanese set cards I only bought when I saw what I felt was like a really, really good value. And I think there are a lot of people in that boat. So some people are talking about the Charizard yeah, prices, the 50% drop in that. So I will say, like, right before some of these drops, there was like a 3 times increase over the last like month and a half. So yeah, so it's just crazy. This market is insane. Okay, let's see. Ernesto Alvarez question: how do you personally like to enjoy your collection? How do other collectors enjoy theirs? Would love to hear more about the joy that cards give you. So, my favorite ways of enjoying my collection, I have on my wall, I have, and I think you guys, some of you guys who have watched my videos in the past have seen I have like a display case, and I tend to rotate cards that I'm really enjoying seeing in and out of that case, so that and those are my PSA cards, so I can look at my PSA cards kind of like all together. And so I really enjoy that. I love building binders, looking at binders, and then moving cards in binders and rearranging them and creating like new and interesting binders and ideas for binders. So binders, the whole process of building a binder, tracking down the cards, putting them in, and that excitement of completing sets and completing the binder, and that part is one of my favorite parts of collecting. I also love the chase, and I love the like tracking down those cards, trying to get them for good value, trying to find missing cards that I don't have. All of that is part of collecting for me, and what makes me kind of a collector personality, that I enjoy that process. Whereas like people who aren't into collecting are like, that sounds like a waste of time or silly, you know, these types of things. Like my girlfriend's not a collector. I feel like it's like there's like a genetic, you know, my dad and I are collectors. My girlfriend's, you know, very much not. And wants to get rid of stuff, you know. So I think that those are two ways. I think another thing that I do and have done really, while, you know, a lot of this stuff has gone on in Pokemon, I still love the cards, but I'm not really feeling that the market's behaving really rationally. I'm not really comfortable with what's going on. So I just stopped, for the most part, I stopped buying Pokemon cards outside of maybe 10 or so things that I was targeting, because I still felt that they were undervalued. And so other than buying those, I moved to other TCGs and other things that I really enjoy to collect. I think that that's one great thing about having, you know, multiple hobbies, is when you're tired of one, or when you feel like one doesn't make sense to you in terms of prices or something, you can move to other things and you can enjoy other things. And so for me, you know, my enjoyment comes from all of the like TCG of that era, you know, particularly Wizards of the Coast, but other things too. And so, so it's a great question. You know, I think that, and I've been talking to, you know, my friends about this too. Like, they've been irritated and disgusted with a lot of what's been going on in the hobby and a lot of what different people are saying and doing. And it's really made it a bit toxic for them, even just like enjoying the cards that they once like really enjoyed. And so, you know, the advice I gave to them and to myself was just like, take breaks, like take time away. You know, people being toxic and you know, toxic, such an internet term, you know, people being like rude and dismissive, you know, of you, of your perspective, you know, arguing on forums because everyone's really heated, like that stuff can really take some of the enjoyment out of just looking at and enjoying the collecting process. And so I think getting back to that is always really important. So we've got some predictions that it's going to be a minor recorrection and prices will stabilize. Definitely possible. So OmniPoke asks an impossible to answer question. Thank you, Joe. You did start it with pure speculation. I want you to answer this question too, Joe. OmniPoke asks, pure speculation. Could you put a percentage on how many people you think would identify as collectors? I just got a super chat from Ernesto Alvarez. I'm going to try to read those going forward. Thank you. I appreciate that. Hope that answer that I gave you kind of helps you, you know, just enjoy the hobby, enjoy the process of collecting, because like I love it so much. It's what drew me to this. You know, if I wanted to make money in a way that wasn't, if I want to make money, I'd be looking at stocks and real estate and these sorts of things, not flipping Pokemon cards primarily. Um, so let's see. Sorry. So Joe asks, yeah, pure speculation. Could you put a percentage on how many people you think would identify as collectors, competitive players, investors currently in the hobby? So I'd be interested, Joe, and maybe you can answer this in the chat if you're still here. What you think? I know it's a bit late for you over in England. What you think? Like the amount of players in the hobby right now. Like, do you think that more players have really entered the hobby and gotten interested in playing the game, or do you think it's more just the collectors? Because that's something that I would love to know. I think it'd be really important, particularly for people who are interested in investing or buying and selling and flipping Modern, to make some profit to then collect. Because Modern is where understanding the playability side is really important if you're flipping, kind of short term when new sets come out. So I'd be interested to hear your perspective on what you think the competitive player scene. Do you feel like there's a lot more growth and pushing? I imagine with COVID, it's been really difficult. With Worlds not happening and a lot of tournaments. Be interesting. Maybe you could make a video. Maybe you already have, but I'd love to hear a video on that on your channel. And for those of you guys who don't know, you should check out. Let me read this super chat before. Murray says, gives a super chat here. Prices will crash. Cards have a 20-year history of building towards prices in 2019, only to triple or more in a few months. Total bubble. Yes. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of there's fraud, there's manipulation in the market, there's people are being rude and condescending and dismissive, and all of that stuff, that intensity and that emotion is what happens in bubbles, because people don't actually feel comfortable and confident with what's going on, so they get angry, they get upset, they try to take advantage of people, they push the boundaries on everything. And that's all that I've been talking about for the last 3 months on this channel, is trying to share that information. And it's not because I have any knowledge that most people who do this sort of thing don't have. I mean, this is exactly what we saw in the housing crisis. It's the same type of behavior. You have to really look at people's behavior and psychology, because even if the cards are very different than houses, and they are, and that is important in terms of when we look at will it retrace and how much it will retrace, the psychology is very similar in terms of the greed fear cycle. Yeah. So, but as I was saying before that, thank you for that super chat. As I was saying before that, people should check out Joe's channel, OmniPoke, if you haven't. One of the best channels in the entire space, in my opinion, and does focus a lot on the playability side, but has like a great beginners and investor guide and beginner collector guide, and and Joe's such a great guy. So he's really someone who is worthwhile taking the time to support. All right, so people are having conversation back and forth about the bubbles. That's always interesting to see. I just hope, it looks like everyone's being respectful. Please, please, please be respectful to each other. So Yamwax asks, do you collect the promos from the Harry Potter TCG? So I'm also on E4 and follow that Harry Potter thread a little bit. And so I noticed that you commented there and have been commenting there a bit off and on, talking about some of those promos. And I think you and a couple of guys have been chasing down that promo, the Wingardium Leviosa, that Japanese one. I don't know much about it. I think I'm not super interested in them because they're not original arts. I have that card just as part of the set, and so that doesn't excite me that much. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't also want it to have a complete set. So that's my feeling. But if it was original art and I really liked the art, I'd be much more prone to I need to get this, that sort of feeling. But because it doesn't have that original art, I'm sort of if I happen to see it at a good price, I'd pick it up, but I don't feel like I'm in a big rush or like I need it to complete my collection there. I'm generally not like a super hardcore completionist compared to like some people in terms of like they need every version of every card, even like error cards and things like that to feel like they have a complete set. That tends not to be how I feel for the most part. So Radazor asks, or he sort of comments that he wonders if I collect any video games as well, graded or otherwise. I don't. So I did research on it. My concern about them is that I worry that they're physically going to deteriorate and that the wrapping is going to deteriorate over time. And I'm concerned that that'll hurt, that'll like break the seal basically and hurt it. And so I'm not so interested in the graded ones. I do like the display case. What I would be interested in is like picking up like a really nice boxes of like red and blue, like, and maybe all the Pokemon games at some point just as like display pieces. And I don't even need them sealed because then I can get them a lot cheaper as long as the box is very nice looking. So it's not like Pokemon box where you can open it up and you get like all these like gem mint cards. It's different, right? It just has the game, and when you open it up, it then becomes like very like it loses almost all of its value because now it's just the game where you can get a lot of that game around. So all of that really worries me as like a safe sort of investment vehicle that I could both enjoy it and it would also go up in value over time. So I'd be careful with that. But I'm not an expert. I think Wada Games does an amazing job, from what I can tell, and I don't have a lot of experience like personally grading things, but I just think that I've heard that they were a group of guys who just like really loved video games, were really passionate about it, and wanted to like create that system to help the market grow, and they did an amazing job, obviously, and that market really came out of nowhere, and was built up a lot through their hard work and effort. That's my understanding of it, at least. Someone can correct me if I'm off on that. And I think that's really cool. So I could see myself like maybe buying some cheaper ones for display pieces, but like spending a lot of money on like a 9.8 would just make me really nervous for those reasons. All right. So people having great conversations back and forth on like how many cards like graded gem and Z and G are going to be grading, like those sorts of things. Some people are grading with CGC. So OmniPoke asks, with more and more Twitch streamers and smaller scale celebs making so much on box breaks and seeing huge views, is every card's population too low? It's a great question. That's something I think about, Joe. Like I'm not only frustrated by like they're creating this like artificial imbalance in the market because they make so much money on the ad revenue, on selling the packs, on the amount they're making on top of it, and on like the entertainment value that they're giving people, or that's why I imagine people are buying those packs. I hope for entertainment value. Although I think that a lot of them basically, frankly, pressure their viewers and say, well, it's a great investment, it's fun, and it's like a really good investment and good use of your money. And it's like, well, if you just hold them, one of the things I constantly hear is if you just hold them, like, yes, you could get this pack cheaper, but if you open it, grade it, and then hold it for long enough, you will definitely make money, and a lot of money on it. So it's still a good deal. And it's like, oh my god. I just hope all these people are rich, who are very well off and really can afford doing that stuff for fun. But yeah, your question here, I think what frustrates me is that it's going to bring those cards out into circulation. More are going to be graded, and then what people don't, I think, give enough credit to is that those booster boxes are only very valuable because the PSA cards are very valuable. Not only, but in large part because of the expected value from the boxes. And it's really not the expected value. It should be more the expected value. It's more the possible excitement of pulling that extremely valuable card. So if enough of those boxes are open, it's actually going to hurt both the booster box prices and the card prices. And I think the short-sighted thinking that booster box owners have is that, well, if there are fewer and fewer booster boxes left, they'll go up in value and go up in value and go up in value because they're a product within and of themselves. And they are to some extent, but they're also dependent on the excitement of the potential graded cards within. Now, that being said, there's also the experience element of opening these Pokemon card packs, and that I do agree with is very valuable. It's hard to quantify how valuable that is. And if the booster boxes do get opened up and more get opened up, for sure, like, there are less of that in the world. And so your opportunity to open that ever, becomes, there becomes less and less potential opportunity to do that. Although, with these streams and all this YouTube stuff, like, it's like a lot of it's just driven by money, right? It's the excitement of how expensive these cards are. I'm going to look on stream and see a guy pull a huge valuable card, and everyone's going to get really excited. And the thing is like, if the market drops, like, a lot of, like, that excitement is going to drop. I think just like there's, like, almost thinking of it as like power creep, like just like there's power creep in like the playability side of Pokemon, in terms of like they need to make it more and more stronger and more shiny and more whatever to keep people interested, and the Pokemon company has to focus on that. Like, these YouTubers also need to keep one-upping themselves, and there's constant pressure to outdo themselves, to talk more about the money, to push, to keep growing their channel, and or just remain relevant, because often they're creating the same exact content over and over and over again. And so that type of environment, is ripe for these sorts of, like, short-term, bubble decision making, short-term decision making that's about short-term. We need to make as much money as we possibly can right now, because I'm not sure how long this is going to last, and that's very destabilizing for everything. So, it'll be a real shame if, like, so many more booster boxes get open that a lot of these pops get a lot more flooded, and then that just hurts the value of everything. That'll be a real shame. So I think it's better for it to be. And going back to what I was saying in the beginning, what we want in a capitalistic system here, right? We want the values to even out, so that people stop opening the booster boxes if the cards go down in value. But what might happen if the YouTubers can keep making money is it gives it a longer window for them to open it, not because the cards are grading well, but because they can either sell the packs for huge prices that I don't understand why people are paying, and get the ad revenue and attention for their other videos. So Radazor says, yeah, all the people buying these starters for multiple thousands are going to get the biggest buyer's regret ever. Yeah. I think, like, nothing is a sure thing. I do think, like, they're amazingly cool cards, and when we look really in the long term, is it possible, like, those cards go for those values again, or go for higher than those values? It's possible. It just seems, when I compare it to other hobbies, it just seems it's a lot of money for things that are just very, very common, in terms of, like, people have lots and lots of them. Like, when we're talking about 3, 4, 5, 6, 10,000 for a Pikachu, like, it's that can buy you a lot of anything, and a lot of things that are going to go up, that are going to pay you dividends and go up probably more steady over time. So yeah, I hope people, I think some people were probably buying it for quick flips, and other people were buying it because they thought that, every year they're going to get, like, 100% returns. And then other people probably bought it thinking steadily it'll go up over time. And those people could potentially, be somewhat right. I don't know about right, but be, we'll see. We'll have to see how it all plays out. All right. Gonna be interesting. Yeah. So people talking about the turnaround time. Yeah, something I've been talking a lot about on this channel is that for a while, and getting flack over it is that how much more supply there is out there for so many of these things. And people were saying, well, the pop numbers aren't going up. The pop numbers aren't going up. I sent in cards 7 months ago now that I haven't gotten back, that are still in the grading process, not even in like the double checking the labels, you know, and the quality control, the quality check processes. So, and when I sent those in, the market hadn't moved up that much. Like, the market really moved up in another month from that, and then 2 months after that, or 3 months after that, it moved up another huge amount, particularly for those commons and commons. So we're not going to see those commons and commons for like 8 to 9 months, probably, in a lot of cases. We're not going to see the full weight of what people are sending in. So people, yeah, we got to be patient with these things. All right, Illuminati. Let's see, got a super chat here from Leo B. I'm collecting sealed base set unlimited boosters to store not open. Good investment. Sealed vintage, good in general. So, I mean, the honest answer is, like, I do not know, Leo. I don't know where those booster boxes are going to go in the long run. What I will say is that they are staples of the hobby. I don't know how many are out there. I think it's part of the problem why I would be uncomfortable investing a lot in something that I didn't have a good sense of the population. Because there could be anything from, like, only 500-ish in the world to, like, tens of thousands in the world. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if it were anywhere between that. And that's a frightening margin, because I know people who have like 15 of them, 10 to 15 of them, but it's possible that those are like the vast outliers, or it's possible a lot of people have that many. I'm not really sure. I would, like, if I had to venture a guess, I would say, like, it's, you know, probably closer to the 500 mark, but I really don't know. It could be closer to the 10,000, honestly. Oh, so that was talking about the box. Sorry, you're specifically talking about the boosters. So I think the issue with boosters is, like, they can be weighed, right? They're a little bit more sketchy to buy. They're a little bit more anxiety producing to buy. Although with the, I don't even know if that's true anymore right now with all the fraud and you know, I heard out of the UK there were some resealed boxes, and we see these resealed boxes. So it's just terrible with all that stuff right now. So to be fair, maybe I'm not right about that, because it's so much more money. I think if you develop a reputable, if you become a reputable seller, you can sell those sorts of things, or you can sell them through reputable sellers. You always, when you're thinking about investment, you have to think about who's going to buy your product and how you're going to liquidate it, how you're going to sell it, because that's a big part of making these decisions. So the good parts of it, the best way to think about it is the good parts of it is that if the Pokemon hobby continues to do well over time, and if vintage product goes up in value over time and even gets back to where it might be now, if we're going to see a correction, or if the prices continue to go up a little bit and then we have a correction, and then, you know, if the prices, once we have a correction, if the prices do regain themselves over time, I think that unlimited booster, you know, vintage packs will move with the value of the cards. They're good products that people really care about value, and there's always going to be a huge market for them no matter what, because they hit everyone. Like, I'm not really a big sealed collector, and I have those booster packs because I love the original arts, and I just have like one of each original art. And so they really hit everyone. And you can also open them, right, for fun. Like, if lots and lots of those booster packs end up getting opened, and there aren't that many left, although in terms of loose packs, there are so many loose packs in the world. You know, they could become that premium for opening, for wanting that excitement, for, you know, rich people wanting to pay for that type of excitement could be possible too. So I think those are the good things. You know, sealed vintage, good in general. Yeah, I mean, it's much better than modern. The prices people are paying for, what people don't, I think, get is that the prices people are paying for retail right now, they may not be able to get those prices back if we see a correction. So not only are people buying modern boxes at like 4 times, 5 times retail in some cases, they're buying it. They're also expecting it to grow from there instead of realizing like they may not even be able to liquidate it back at the base price if the psychology and the hype and the fad out of the market leaves. We don't know the answers to that. It could stay in. But there's a lot of risk. And when I say those things aren't investable, that's what I mean. Not that you can't make money. When I say something isn't investable, it doesn't mean that you can't make money off of it. It means that it doesn't have the qualities that I look for in a sort of value, in a safe, steady, value investment vehicle. I do think that within Pokemon, vintage sealed product does fit that criteria. Is now a good time to buy? Is now a good time to sell? Those are personal decisions that are really difficult to figure out. So I hope that answer's helpful. Unfortunately, I can't really crystal ball it anymore for you. But those are my general feelings. I think as far as like owning Pokemon stuff, you should feel pretty good about owning something like that. All right, let's see where we are here. So Illuminati asks, you like Topps Chrome cards? Question mark. I feel mixed on them. I have like a couple. I tried. There were a few times that I almost decided to get really into them and start collecting them, and I was close to like closing a deal for like a lot of ungraded ones that I was going to grade at like a really good price, and then the deals just kind of fell through, and so I never was able to buy into them at prices that I wanted to buy into them, and then they went up in price a little bit, and I just had other things that I was more interested in for that money. The thing about the Topps Chrome cards is, although they're difficult to grade, they can stick together fresh out of pack. The Techno ones are very difficult to pull. You've got your Techno, Techno Sparkle, the regular, and then there's one other one, whatever. I'm not, as you could say, I'm not a collector of them. The Techno ones are really difficult to pull, right? It's like 1 in 40 packs or something like that. Off the top of my head, I don't really remember. If you're into them, you have to like actually do your research, and I don't really collect them. But yeah, so very difficult to grade, very hard to pull the Techno ones. That adds chase collectability in them. In terms of the way they look, I way prefer just the art. I way prefer the Japanese, Cardass, Topson, like the Medjai 1999. Even I prefer the Bandai 1996, although those are my least favorites, and those I actually think are fairly comparable in terms of quality to me. In terms of like quality of the art in my interest. So I noticed the video is a little choppy again. I might restart the internet if again. So we might have a moment for it to reconnect if it keeps being choppy. We'll see. So Ernesto asks, how do you personally? Oh, sorry. Oh, I just jumped back to the top. What's going on here? Oop, my computer's freezing. Got quite the setup, guys. Let's see. I'm trying to get to the last question, so I try not to miss anyone's question. So let's see. So D-Bag asks, hey, do you think we saw the burst of the bubble? I think that there's no way to know that yet. I mean, I think that we don't know if this is the start of a big correction, of a tiny correction, if this isn't a correction at all. And it's just a blip, it's just a few sales. As I said in the beginning, like, we're looking for like established price ranges. Don't panic or think that everything is a certain way because of one sale. That doesn't mean a lot of people are willing to buy at that price. It could be the next people are a lot lower. It could be like there's one bad sale because a few people who really wanted it like weren't on that computer that day or weren't there waiting for that auction. So We just have to see, you have to see a bunch of sales at any given price ranges, and then we have to see like what sets correct a lot, what don't correct a lot, and what cards correct a lot, and what cards within those sets don't. And I think that the ones, as I have always said on this channel, the rarest ones, the ones with the lowest PSA 10 pops, are going to be the stickiest in terms of not correcting, but they're also going to be very hard to sell if there is a big correction. And they're not going to correct as much just because there aren't that many of them to sort of, just like they were laddering up, they're not going to be as many to like ladder the prices down. All right. TCG Authority says, do you sell anything in the last few weeks or sitting on the collection long term? So I have been selling some. I've been selling some doubles. And I actually looked into selling a lot of my most valuable cards, to be completely transparent with you all. I was fielding some offers from certain people. I wasn't comfortable with the offers and comfortable with the market where it was at. And so even though I feel like probably from a financial perspective, I was feeling tempted to take them and then maybe rebuy some of those cards, a lot of my cards have such low populations that they may not retrace that much, and they might be almost impossible to get back because the people who own them may just never want to part with them. That type of thing. So that's why I didn't. But a lot of my doubles, commons, uncommons, things like that, yeah, I did start to sell some of it because I felt like it was honestly like financially irresponsible to myself and to my family to completely not, even though I didn't need the money in the short term. But I haven't sold very much. I have the vast majority of my stuff I am holding, and I think for right now I kind of go back and forth on it. But for right now I might just hold it now. Honestly, this market even makes me a little anxious to sell in, given the shill bidding and all sorts of things. So I'm also tempted to just kind of like hold through this period, and then if I do sell, I would almost feel more comfortable selling at more established price points, so I feel like I'm getting like a fair value for my cards, and if I change my mind, I feel like I can buy them back at a sort of similar or slightly higher price, not a dramatically different price. Yusebuya says, congrats on move-in. Thank you, sir. Yeah, I've had a really good couple of weeks. I don't really like talking about my personal life on here too much, but I've had like passed a big licensing test and some different things, and my life is moving forward in certain ways, going to be taking a really great new job, and so is my girlfriend and these sorts of things. So it's stuff is good. Stuff is good away from Pokemon, and as I said before, I was really happy about that news about the out of Pfizer. Let's see what else we got here. So ChatBN1992 asks, what is your take on lower PSA pops not being accurate? So yeah, so it's a thing. Like, we don't know how many. I assume you're talking specifically about cases being broken and then resealed, which is definitely a thing. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about there, sorry, people will, like, if you have like an 8 or a 9, but you think it's a really strong 9, you might regrade it to try and get a 10. Or there are people who regrade like a card over and over again to try and get it a 10, or to try to move it up in grade. And so that's going to affect the pop reports, because it's going to be recorded twice, as both a 9 and a 10, or as a 9 and then a 9 again. So, let's see. So JM sent a super chat and says, the cards that don't correct are the cards that collectors buy and don't plan on selling. It goes back to who is buying. Yeah, that's generally great advice, JM. I think that buying cards that collectors are buying versus speculators are buying cards that we think are in the hands of collectors who are going to want to hold those cards, have a sentimental value to those cards, and are not going to want to sell those cards, and are not going to panic sell them into the market, and buy cards that wealthy people can hold. Basically, they don't need to sell if they start going down. They can just hold them. They don't have to panic sell. And so I think a lot of your 10s are going to see that more, your vintage 10s, and definitely your trophy cards. That's why I constantly talk about trophy cards as a hedge in this environment. Trophy cards are going to be your safest hedge. So, you know, great point. Great point, JM. Yeah, and you said PSA 10, PSA BGS 10 or bust. Yeah, I think that I think that nines when all said and done, nines are going to be very rare and valuable because I do think that there's long term. I do think this market is going to become established when we talk 10, 20, 30 years down the line, and I think that those nine, they're not going to be enough of those to go around, but I think in the short term, particularly if things go really bad and a bunch of things kind of just like everything was a perfect storm for the prices to go up a huge amount, if there's a perfect storm on the other side where people start panic selling and then a bunch more people get their cards back from like PSA all at once and a bunch of nines, particularly unlimited but also first edition, although I think a lot of those have been graded already, you know, the 9-10 candidates, you know, we could see this perfect storm where like nines plummet, right? And there just aren't going to be as many tens to likely plummet. Although, as I said before, if the nines plummet, people are no longer going to be willing to buy the tens at really, really high prices because they're going to say to themselves, I would rather just buy a nine. So now that's not true for like very wealthy people who are going to want the best of the best. But for a lot of us where money matters, you know, we're going to feel that way. So Mitch asks, does anyone know if Logan Paul ends up buying some higher-end trophy cards or promos, or did he more or less stop after getting a PSA 10 for Charizard? I heard that he was talking to certain people. He was trying to find a Pikachu illustrator, and there was some talk about him trying to like get into trophies a little bit. I don't know if he's gonna do that. Obviously, he said on his stream, whatever, that he's like not gonna do Pokemon. He's gonna move on to the next thing. I don't know if that means he's going to stop collecting Pokemon or if that means he's going to stop talking about it, streaming about it, and sharing it as content. So that's another thing to think about. So he might still be in the high-end community looking for some of those trophy cards, but I think he was signaling that he's not going to talk about it publicly, although he could change his mind, right? Like at any time. He can do whatever he wants. Blitz for Ray said, was there a fake trophy card he bought, or was that just a stunt? That was a stunt. Evidently. That's what I heard. So, and he like cut himself because he got so angry, and evidently it was a stunt. Empire of Nostalgia asks, CP6 20th anniversary Japan. Oh, what do you think about CP6 20th anniversary Japan? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot less of it, but it's like super overinflated in value. You know, evolutions. I was going to make a video, which I just never sent out because I was just like, I talk enough about this, but I was going to basically make a video detailing how ridiculous the Evolutions Charizard prices are compared to everything else in the market, and that it's like the single most overrated, overvalued card in the entire Pokemon market by far, like by a large margin, even greater than the Unlimited Charizard, which was like the other one, and of course we saw a huge correction in the Unlimited Charizard. Like the Unlimited Charizard was also absurd in a lot of ways, but at least the Unlimited Charizard's like 20 years old. You know, these Evolutions Charizards, there's so many of them out there are going to constantly being graded. Just crazy that the nines were going for like, I saw one sell for like $1,500, $1,600, a PSA 9. Like, I know it's not CP6, but it's, you know, the Evolutions counterpart. Just nuts. Now, the thing that's good about CP6 is that there are so much less CP6 than Evolutions. So much less. But I don't really think that's going to matter that much in the long run. I think the other thing that's cool about CP6 is the box art has that like original base set art on it, and I do think the box looks cool, although it's kind of small and I'm not sure it makes the best display piece as compared to like the original Japanese booster box, base set booster box, which might be the coolest booster box in the whole hobby in terms of art, in my opinion. So Chris says, I'm buying Modern because that's what I enjoy. Yeah, I'm buying Modern too. I'm with you, Chris. It's fun. I think that's part of why I get really frustrated too with Modern. It's like Modern is meant to bring people into the hobby. In my view, it's meant. I mean, the market's going to decide what people are going to decide what anything is meant. But I think rather than saying meant, I think ideally the Modern market brings kids in. It's a way to open packs with your friends, with your family, to do it at a price that's affordable for everyone so that everyone can enjoy it. It can bring everyone into the hobby. And I think that think that it turned there was a fever around it, and it turned, and people were seeing boxes double and triple within a few months of release. And as I was saying on this channel, it created an irrational fervor around it that is not normal. That is not generally healthy pattern. So yeah, what I would say is like I really like Modern. I'm going to open, actually this weekend, Rafi and I are going to do a video together where we're going to open some Vivid Voltage, because we got our booster box. I like buying like one booster box of each new set because it's fun. And yeah, I really enjoy that. And I also think like grading Modern, like there are a few cards here and there that are worth grading, I think, in terms of long-term investable value. There are going to be a few cards here and there, but just like, I think the best thing to look at when you think about what's going to be valuable in Modern is look at what's valuable now in like basketball cards. And now basketball cards are also in a bit of a, they obviously came down in price a lot of them at least, but they're also in quite a bit of a bubble, as most cards were during this period because of like Gary Vee and the fervor around all this stuff. But if you look there, you can see like the Michael Jordans, if we want to compare Michael Jordan to Charizard or whatever, like the Michael Jordan rookie card. So rookie cards, so something that makes it feel like a rookie, something comparable to a rookie, like first Shining or first full art Shining or first full art from Flashfire, first full art Shining from Hidden Fates, for something that's going to give it some sort of long-term collector identity that's going to make it stand out. And because a lot of people are going to need to want that card and always want that card for it to remain at those prices, versus Vintage where there's just so much less of the product. And I think that Vintage stands out so much more too because it's the first and will always be the first. So that's what you have to be aware of in Modern. But like, I'm always going to be like, I think always going to be, opening Modern, collecting Modern. I'm always interested in like what the new sets are and what Pokemon does. Yeah, big fan of it. And I'm a fan of grading the cards for my enjoyment too. Like I grade, there are plenty of cards I grade, not because I think that it's an investment or it's going to go up in value, but because I like them graded. I like the way they look and I want to display them on my mantle and those sorts of things. Yeah, so TCG Authority asks, am I answering questions or just a chat? Yeah, I'm answering what I do as Omnipoke, as Joe says, for those who are somewhat new. I start at the top and I just like answer as many questions as I possibly can, basically in 2 hours. And I guess what we're doing tonight is I've answered some super chat questions. Not sure how I feel about people cutting the line, giving me money to cut the line. Kind of goes against like the message of this channel. I'm gonna have to think about that. I have never done that before this stream. Yeah, that doesn't sit quite right with me. So I'm gonna have to think about that as I say it to you guys about how I feel about that process. But I guess if I can answer their questions quickly, it's a way for me to make some money for my time and doesn't take away too much from other people. So we'll see. I'll have to think about it. Okay. And it's, to me, it's better than an alternative of like, in order to make some money for my time on this channel, I would like make this more private, or bring it away from you guys, or like do it for just like members and these sorts of things and charge you like $1.99, like other channels do or other things do. Because the reality is like, I'm about to start like, I will be starting I'll be much busier next year, and in order to like have enough time to do this channel and actually create like valuable, good content for people that I feel good about, I'm gonna have to figure out like exactly how to fit that into my schedule and do that. All right, but I'll be as always, I will be transparent with all of you guys on what that process looks like. Okay, let's see. Brandon Moore asks, do you enjoy the Japanese vending sets from a collector's perspective? As the prices have been increasing, I've been looking to Japanese for new cards to collect. Yeah, I've always really enjoyed the Japanese vending sets. I have a number of PSA 10 vending cards, my favorites generally, and I have a couple completed versions of those complete sets because I really liked them, always really liked them. Particularly some of like the hand-drawn type art. There's a lot of hand-drawn type art, from those sets. And Yeah, it just has this like very like vintage, unique, cool vibe to them. In terms of um yeah, so yeah, and you're just asking just from the collector's perspective. Yeah, yeah, so there you go. So yeah, Brandon, really like them. I'm guessing you probably like them too. You know, they do have like repeats. Like I think you can get them, you know, in like the starter sets, you know, from that time period. There are ways to get that art that aren't specifically from the vending series. I'll also say what I really love and have always really loved are those Misaki promos. They were immediately my favorite Japanese like non-set cards when I first learned about them, and I learned about how they were distributed. Those and the fan clubs, like the fan club Eevee and the fan club Porygon, were immediately my favorite cards, hands down. And for a while, they were like the only things. Like I think for like a month, they were the only things I wanted to buy, because I liked them so much. Uh, and I bring up the Misaki because they had Misaki cards had the same set symbol because they were really part of the vending set in that you had to, in order to get them, you had to send in cards like Bill's PC and see if I can remember. You had to send like the you know um, the first stage or second stage or whatever Pokemon. You had to send it in with the Bill's PC card, I think. Oh my god. It's been so long since I've thought about them or talked about it. I think that's right. Whatever. You had to send in cards from the set to get those Misaki promo cards from the Pokemon Company. And the reason they did that is it sort of mimics that experience with within the game that you can only get like within the Game Boy game that you could only get Gengar, Omastar, Machamp, by through trading and Alakazam because it couldn't evolve. You couldn't evolve it unless you got a traded Pokemon that then evolved. So that was just like so cool. I love that, and because I love the Game Boy games so much, any references to the Game Boy games I absolutely love. Just like I love that the Porygon from the fan club art has like the arcade background, like the Rockets arcade or whatever from the game. That you have to win Porygon in that game, and it has that background. Like, love that stuff. The little nods, huge appreciator of it. Blitzray says, "Please, can Modern go down? I want to buy some already." Yeah, I feel ya. Yeah, it'll be nice when people aren't like I don't want people to lose money and get hurt, but it's also like it would be nice if people like weren't like massively hoarding Modern for everyone, for their own sake and also for our sake. And ironically, it's like if people weren't doing that, it would be like quite a bit more valuable if massive amounts of people weren't doing that. But even like the other big problem is that people are sleeving their cards now, and adults are collecting, and so they're going to be in like gem mint condition, unlike our childhood cards that never had value. So there are all sorts of problems of why people are doing that. All right, StarCraft 965 says, "Do you think PWCC is a good place to sell vintage booster boxes?" You know, I don't know the answer. I'm not a booster box seller, so I think that it's an interesting question. I don't follow the prices that much on the booster boxes in PWCC or how they've been doing relative to the PSA cards have been selling really well on PWCC. So I imagine that that's true for booster boxes right now, that it's a very hot market. Certainly like PokeRev doing his like live streams of it helped, I think, bring more eyes onto it. You know, on PWCC, one issue you have right now is shill bidding, obviously. Like those jungle boxes last time around were shill bid like crazy. But I'm not sure if that's just like a one-off or is going to be a theme going forward. We'll have to see what happens in the next few months. It's hard to sell. It's hard to sell stuff right now, in a way that feels really safe and feels like you're not going to get scammed and they're not going to get scammed. It's part of what is stressful about Pokemon being so valuable and these items being so valuable versus stocks where you just press a button on an app and it gets sold immediately. So Marcus says he's noticed an increase in most of the WotC pops going up, even first base, Fossil Jungle Hollows. Yeah, Yeah, nines have, from what I noticed, and I haven't looked at it in a few weeks, but nines have been the thing that have kind of moved a lot, including eights, sevens to some extent. Tens for a lot of cards, particularly the really hard to grade cards, continue to be slow. Jonathan B asks, Jake, what would you recommend to someone that wants to reinvest profits from reselling sealed product and PSA cards to fund the hobby? Sorry, wait. Jake, what would you recommend to someone that wants to reinvest profits from reselling sealed product and PSA cards to fund the hobby with the long PSA wait times? Stick to sealed product thoughts. Okay. So I'm not 100% sure what you're asking here. So you're saying that you want to reinvest some profits you've made from reselling sealed product PSA cards. So I think you're asking me, should I put it in more sealed product? Should I put it in PSA cards? Like, where should I reinvest the money? I think is what you're asking. So, which is the $1 million question. I don't really know. Unfortunately, I think if you're purely trying to make money right now, honestly, if you're purely trying to make money right now, it's like I'm not sure I'd be buying anything. I might be holding some cash and seeing what happens next. If I'm being completely honest, like if I was purely, but that's also my risk tolerance isn't that crazy high. I think that if you have the money, you can go after like do some research on trophy cards, try to get a trophy card that you think is undervalued, undernoticed. Try to buy a vintage booster box. Vintage booster packs are good. Just the usual anything vintage first edition, PSA 10, WotC Hollows. I think E series is kind of interesting. I think Neos are kind of interesting. I think the Gold Stars are kind of interesting potentially. Gold Stars are going to be. We're going to see how niche they are. We're going to see how many people make it to Gold Stars. Given the prices of everything, I'm not sure as many people are going to make it to Gold Stars as they've made it in the past because their money isn't stretching as far. Like when I was in the hobby, I was able to stretch my money from first edition base like all the way through to modern. If I was getting in the hobby right now, that same amount of money wouldn't stretch me nearly as far. And so I think that that's the other thing you have to think about as you kind of move down the line of what is most collectible. So those are all the things that I would be thinking about. Again, we're really trying to predict something that's extremely difficult to predict right now. And so my personal strategies when I think things are very chaotic and very difficult to predict is I minimize my risk. I try to stay patient and calm, and but that's my style and strategy. I think that if you want to flip, we can see how like some of the new sets do. We can see how like Shiny V, maybe if you try to get some of those boxes right away and flip them when those come from Japan, if there's still a lot of heat around those. There might be some interesting promos next year that might be a good opportunity from Japan to buy a bunch of them, ungraded directly from Japan and then grade those and flip those. Like they're going to be these opportunities that I think are a lot safer than just buying something right now at a very high price when the market could go down quite a bit in the near future or not. It's like, who knows? Just hoping that it's gonna, I think generally the best ways to make money in this hobby are based on your skill and ability to grade cards, pre-grade cards yourself, so you know what cards are going to get graded generally, and then you find really good deals of very mint cards, you grade them and then flip them. Like I think that process works extremely well. I think the two best ways to make money are to do that over and over and over again into the market. Although with PSA wait times, it's a lot more difficult. But if you can find good enough margins, what you can do is you can send it expedited and pay the $50, $75, whatever it is, or more if it's a really expensive card. And that doesn't take that much out of your margin if you have the capital to do something like that and the skill and ability, but there's risk in it. And then the other thing to do is like modern, I think buying brand new modern sets and trying to sell them at like a little bit of a premium. But it's really tough because so many people are doing that. So many businesses are doing that are getting the cards at better margins and are selling directly from their stores to avoid like eBay fees and things like that. So it's hard in this type of insane market. There were like a lot of just like average people who never really did it before who were successful at doing that. I think that is going to be difficult. First of all, I think there's more competition in this space right now, and if that demand leaves, people are going to be in trouble with a lot of that stuff. So I'd be careful not going too hard into that, even in the short term. So those are all my general thoughts. I hope that's helpful. Wes Ellis says, "Have you seen what's been going on with the new Magic the Gathering set? There's a new Lotus card going for $150 and crazy overhyping." I have not been following it. My apologies. I've been sort of taking a little bit of a break in general, but I have not been following that. I'll have to look into it. Thanks for letting me know. Energy asks, how do you determine the price of a PSA card if there's no sales data, e.g. a lot of the reverse holo from the vintage set? So I would compare it to other reverse holos from that set first. If you can't find prices for any of those other reverse holos from the set, then you have to compare it to reverse holos from like the same time period, but a different set within the same type of set, or a different type of reverse card. And if you can't do that, then it just takes a lot of skill and experience in the hobby to correctly identify what you think people are going to pay. You estimate it yourself. Now, here's where I've seen a lot of scamming happening on these types of cards. People say things like, and I hope I think probably a lot of people who watch my channel know this, but it needs to be spread around, right? One of the biggest scams I talked about on this channel for a long time is people say things like, I have a Pop 1 card, I have a Pop 2 card, it's worth $10,000, or it's worth $1,000, or it's worth even $500. You have to be really careful. You have to be really careful with that. Sorry, I just lost my place, guys. Give me one sec. Shoot. The chat just cut me off, guys. I'm sorry. That's unfair for the people who are waiting for me to answer their questions. Yeah, it won't let me go back like far in the chat. It only lets me go to a certain point. So I'm going to have to start answering the questions from there. I'm so sorry for people who got skipped. My apologies. I don't know why it does that. Maybe I can actually go back on the other chat. Hold on, because I have two windows open. Let me see if I can go back and get there, because I really don't want to do that to anyone. Can someone help me out, and if someone knows where I was before? Let's see, I'm looking, guys. Let's see. I'm still scrolling up here. It's taken a while. All right. So I'm going to have to jump in on wherever it is right now. My apologies. So it looks like I'm jumping in here at looking for the next question. So people are talking about. So Neon Slice is making some arguments. I think Neo Slice is saying that I don't believe in investing unless it's WotC First Edition, because that's what I have. Not really sure. Are you saying that to me, or are you saying that? Let's see. I guess I will keep going with questions. So I actually own a lot of PSA 10 cards of every set, including Modern, and the fact that Modern's gone up a lot in value, I've made like hundreds of thousands of dollars on if I were to sell all my Modern cards. Just so you guys are aware that of where I'm coming from. Looking for more questions here. So Tanner Stenning asks, oh wait, there might be some questions before that, and then I will get to that. Oh yeah, here we go. So Tanner Stenning asks, hi Jake, what advice do you have for those of us who've never graded cards, have a big collection, and want to start sending stuff to PSA? So I would need like more information, Tanner, on specifically like what you're hoping to do. I'm gonna answer it in a certain way that may not be the way you're looking for, but I think one issue that people have when they're sending in cards for the first time is just the anxiety of like sending out all these valuables and wondering, you know, are they going to come back to me? You know, worrying they're going to lose their childhood cards, these types of anxieties. And one thing I'd say is that's very normal anxiety to feel. I felt that way too when I started grading. And I think that, you know, but it's so rare that there are issues, particularly if you fully insure the value of your package. So I would not cut corners. Myself, I know there are people who send in like really expensive cards and like don't insure their packages because they're trying to save like 50, 60 bucks. And it's just like, that's not my personality. That's not what I do. I factor the insurance into my cost basis I think that that getting over that anxiety is important. I think you understanding there's to be completely frankly with you, Tanner, there's a lot of really bad advice going on like what cards people should grade. And a lot of like streamers and just kind of like random people are telling people to grade everything. And I wouldn't do that unless you want the card graded for your collection, for sure. And or you have plenty of money to do it. But if you're doing it because you think it's going to make your card more valuable, I would be, and particularly if it's modern, I would be very careful with that in the long term. The other thing you can think about is that you can always send it in for grading in the future. Like, you don't need to grade it right now. Your cards will stay in good condition if you keep them in good condition. And so one thing that I think is really valuable to do is to, particularly in an unstable market like this, is I only send in things that have huge margins, that pass my test of like my personal, you know, like what I just sent in was like I haven't even sent in like my unlimited cards yet. Like, I have tons and tons of unlimited cards that I'm not sending in because even though like I have cards ungraded that are worth 500, 600, $700 if they come back tens, like lots of them, right? And cards that just like your base set, Charmander or something, for example, right? Although I think that's come down in price probably a little at this point, but maybe. And I have a bunch of the Shadowless one, which maybe is still going for $400 or $500. And I a lot of people are sending in a ton of stuff right now, and are sending in everything, and are sending in all of these like base set hollows, in like 5, 6s, and 7s. So I just think, like, personally, if I wasn't very well off, and or I wasn't trying to like race the market and try to beat that stuff to market, I would be holding a lot of my cards right now, waiting to see what happens, and then getting them graded in the future over time. Or I would be slowly grading cards, prioritizing the cards that are very valuable and that I feel very confident will hold value in the long term and will continue to go up. Okay, so that's my personal strategy. The opposite of that is if you want to sell immediately, sending in an expedited and trying to sell into the continued hype of the market, and trying to rush it through as quickly as possible to try and make money. As a collector, it's a lot easier, because it's sort of like, well, if I'm just doing it for the enjoyment and for the collection, and maybe I want to be smart with my money, I think sending it in now is fine. It's going to take a while to get back, but it's possible PSA could continue to raise their prices, like, on things. So there's also that end. So I would send a lot of cards maybe in bulk, and then go from there. That type of thing. As long as they fit under that $100 price range, and it'll take a long time, but it'll save you money, and you get a lot of cards that you really cherish and really enjoy. I will say that it's safe. I have never had PSA damage one of my cards. I know people talk about these horror stories. I've never had PSA damage one of my cards. I've never had PSA. I think I've had maybe like 1 or 2 grades that I thought were like considerably lower than I was expecting, in thousands and thousands and thousands of cards. It's generally always within, it's usually the same grade that I was expecting, and or within 2 grades, right? Because I always expect a range. It's almost always within that range. Like, we're talking like 2 times. I only have 1 card in my whole collection that they graded, and I still look at it today. It's like this PSA 7 first edition War Turtle, and it's like, this card looks pretty flawless to me, and I can't see. Usually there's maybe like a lip or something somewhere on one of the corners that are like a slight indentation or something, and I just don't see anything wrong with it, and I don't know why I got a 7, and maybe I'll send that back in someday or something when things calm down. But in terms of like hopefully lowering your anxiety about that, they do a really good job. It just takes a really long time, and I'd be careful. Yeah, so Jody says to Tanner that there are a lot of videos by YouTubers showing you exactly how to go through the grading process. Yeah. Flex Gods did a video. I saw some of that video, and he kind of goes step by step and shows that. And there are a lot of videos like that online too, that I've seen. So I'm not gonna make a step by step video. It's not the niche that I try to fill on the channel. So people are giving each other advice on like what to grade, what to send in. Yeah, I just to be completely honest with you guys, like, and this isn't about any of the specific comments I'm reading here, people are far too bullish, and most YouTubers, in my view, are far too bullish on what you should grade and what you shouldn't grade for financial value. And people are way, way overvaluing a lot of their cards right now. And I know that that's sort of like, it's very vague, and it's not like super helpful in terms of giving you guys specifics, and maybe I'll try to make videos in the future. I'll try to find some like specific examples to help educate, but like, and again, it's my opinion. At the end of the day, people can do what they wish. It's their money, but just like there's so many YouTube channels where that say this is, oh, definitely invest this, and they have lots of subscribers, and I'm like, I certainly wouldn't be sending those in, and I certainly wouldn't be rushing them and spending $50 express and and these types of things. So Um, let's see. So Marcus asks, if you don't mind me asking, what are your 3 most valuable cards? Oh, a value question. So I try not to talk too much about the value. Um, but I don't know. My 3 most valuable cards. I have like it's so hard. I mean, it's probably like some. It's probably like the tropical wind. Um, I have like 2 very low pop. I have 3 very low pop PSA 10 Shadowless hollows from base set that are all, it's hard to value them because they don't sell because there aren't enough of them. Those cards are quite valuable. I have like PSA 10 Skyridge Charizard. I have like the Gold Star Charizard. I have like couple first edition Charizard hollow from base set, but the highest one's PSA 6. So those are some of my more valuable cards. I would say that the vast majority of my cards are, not over $10,000. Okay. I have like different. I have a lot of like low pop. First edition Neo card. I have some first edition PSA 10 Neo cards. I have some doubles of them, and I have the entire like Gym Challenge in first edition. I have most of Skyridge and most of Aquapolis in first edition PSA 10 too. So those are like some of my more valuable cards. And then I have a lot of those stamped promo cards, including some finalist ones that are probably, I would value, at around 10,000-ish, somewhere in there. All right, so there you go. So just so you guys know, I guess. So Lewis Underwood says, I think serious collectors will always be willing to pay X amount of price for anything Pokemon as long as they really want it, bubble or not. Just look at Disney or Funko, definitely on the rise. Yeah, so cards, I think that that no one is going to pay more than they have to pay. And so if there aren't enough people driving the prices up, like if I could get the same card I really want for a lower price because there's someone who wants to sell and no one's bidding against me or no one wants it, I'm not going to like offer them triple. I'm going to probably hold out and wait for them to come down because I think they really need to sell it. But cards like some trophy cards are the only ones that I would really put in that category. And maybe eventually probably definitely some PSA 10 first edition hollow, vintage cards and gold star cards will probably fit that category as long as the market keeps growing over time. But in the short term, like all those cards come up on the market, including every base set, PSA 10 first edition card, is going to come up on the market. It's going to keep coming up on the market on PWCC on these sorts of things. A lot of them are going to change hands. Okay. Although right, we've seen the trophy cards come up too recently. This is definitely the most amount of trophy cards I've ever seen sold too during this time period. Publicly, at least. All right. So Neon Slice asks, if you have a pop 2 card, should you sell for fear of more pops coming in? I don't know. It depends on the card. Like, is it a pop 2 because it's really, really difficult to grade, or is it a pop 2 because nobody wants it and so no one graded it? Most pop 2s in the hobby have very little value because people didn't want to grade them. There's never been a market for them. There's never been a demand for them, and there likely never will be. Now, there are some pop 2s, particularly in some more niche Japanese things, that I do think that there is demand for and might be, continued increased demand in the future. English doesn't have anything like that, particularly on the set side. that is very high demand and that low of pop. The lowest pops again are from Expedition, the Neos, and some of like the legendary collection cards, like the Blastoise. And they're around like 7 to 15, a lot of them, or 7 to 25 in terms of pop. I do think, interestingly, the twos, some of the twos and the threes, like the level X's that are really gorgeous, really cool. I think, I always felt like were extremely underrated cards. They do have some like that are that low, and it'll be interesting to see now that those have gone up in value if those pops ever fill out. Because I've heard a lot of people have told me that they're sitting on 50, 60 mint copies of those types of things. Now, they're very, very difficult to grade. So, even if they send in 50, I don't know how many of those will get 10s. So we'll just have to see. But those pops are not filled out. So if you're actually talking about a card like that specifically, maybe it is a really good time. If you can get a huge premium, it might be a good time to sell, honestly. Oh, so Neon Slice asks, tells me it's a Pop 2 card-ass card, 1998. Yeah, so I'm guessing, so I know the pop card-ass cards, the only cards that have that low of a pop that are really high demand would be like the blue, 1998. Oh, sorry. I thought you were writing 1995. Okay, well, I'm not sure, like, you'd have to tell me like the specific card and exactly which one from that set. It depending on the art and the Pokemon on it, it could be a really difficult to grade card. Those cards are very, very difficult to grade, and there has been a decent amount of demand. So, to be fair, there is those are interesting cards. There are a lot of interesting cards around that time period, where I do think that they have really cool art. But what you need to do, Neon, is you need to understand how much is left in the world and how they were distributed. And I'm not exactly sure the exact card you're talking about here. So you need to know sort of exactly how difficult the card was to grade. Are people getting these things from packs? Are there still boxes out there in Japan? Like, there's a lot of info that I would want to try and get, and the info is tough to get. So people like Tsunagu is a guy is a Japanese seller. He doesn't speak the best English, has an amazing collection of Japanese cards, and has a lot of these booster boxes. So reaching out to him on eBay, he has a YouTube channel. I've developed a friendship with him, and he gives me some information on some of these things sometimes. So reaching out, trying to build these contacts, to get more of that information, to know, because the real question is how much more of that is out there. If there is demand, how much more is sitting there in Japan? Generally, prices drive out the cards, but if they're Japanese cards and most of the cards are in Japan, the prices need to get quite a bit higher to drive them over here, because there's the cost of sourcing them, from Japan, getting them here, finding them, all of that. And so that needs to be factored in, like, how expensive does the card need to get in order for all of the sort of supply to hit the market or get graded in this case. So Carly Gill asks, we've got about 26 minutes left, just to give everyone a reminder, and then I'm going to end for the night, and we'll do another chat soon. So Carly Gill asks, any thoughts on WotC booster boxes and how they relate to the current bubble? Any thoughts on WotC booster boxes and how they relate to the current bubble? Nothing that I haven't shared. I think that I think that it's one thing to think about going forward is what are the types of people that are going to leave the hobby and who's going to stay, and are the people who are going to stay are they going to be more into the cards themselves, into the PSA cards? They going to be more into the booster boxes? Like, considering those types of things, it's all highly speculative right now. So I think I'm just going to let sort of the majority of what I've already said earlier on them kind of stand. are the types of people that are going to leave? So VVV asks, do you think we will see some cool Japanese promo in regards to Pokemon Anniversary next year? I think we will. Probably, right? I think, as I said earlier in the chat, I think that someone was asking what I should be reinvesting in, and I think, capitalizing on something like that could be an interesting move. There's going to be a lot of other people trying to do that, but if you can get them, at that base price from Japan and then grade them, there you'll probably be able to make a profit unless the market really shrinks. Joe Banker asks, Jake, any progress or plans for starting the channel collection with the revenue you guys make from the channel? I know a couple months ago. Yeah, so the big buy I bought was actually lending the money for the channel. So if people haven't been watching the channel that long, you can go back, and I have a video entitled I Actually Bought Something, and that was that first edition base set common uncommon lot that I bought, and that was the idea of that. Was that I was, but it was such a good deal, and it was such a perfect time to do it that I overspent the amount of money that the channel has made, and so now I'm putting that money back into that. So don't worry, I haven't forgotten about doing that, but that's where that has went. So it's a good question, John. I'm not sure exactly where the channel is in terms of financially. I think we probably have made. I'd have to look at the analytics. I think it's probably like just over $1,000 so far, about 1,000 or something like that. Maybe slightly under 1,000. I'm not sure. Let's see. Jake, as a competitor of the PTCG who has several trophy cards, would you say grade and hold is the best bet? Yeah, it's interesting. So, depending on which ones you have, some are in incredible demand and are, in my opinion, like absolutely made cards. So if you have like, the top trophy cards, like first, second, third place world championship cards, like the full art Pikachus, those cards I'm trying to find them all the time. I know a lot of people are trying to track those down, are trying to buy those. If you have those cards, want to sell them to me, let me know. Anyone out there, I would be absolutely thrilled. That would be like one of the pinnacles of my collection to own those, as I'm such a big fan of the World Championships and the World Championships chip arts, and I do hope eventually I will own those cards. Those are a big part of my long-term goals, is to own all of the stamped promo cards and those trophy cards from each year. It's a humongous goal that would take a really long time to get. There's one person in the world who's done it, or David Person, who we've had on the channel. So if you have, depending on which ones you have, if it's the stamped ones, if it's not World Championship, but other sort of stamped prize cards you've gotten from other sorts of things, I think that the key is how well known are they right now. If they're well known, they're probably not going to grow as much in price, but I still think that they're like really safe bets for the long term, and there's always going to have a lot of demand and value and just not be enough to meet the demand. But ones that are like really like underknown and people don't know the distribution, and people, like most people, if they were to see it, they wouldn't even recognize the card. Those are the cards that are particularly undervalued, and I certainly would not sell those into this market, because I think over time, if people stay interested, people are going to learn all about those cards, and I think that as the Pokemon community learn more about them, they're going to be more in people's heads and people's minds. They're going to get more hype around them and excitement. But that's really cool that you've won some trophy cards. That's really exciting and awesome. Thanks for sharing that with us. I've actually thought about. I love games, and I was a big poker player for a long time. Did a lot of that. I've gotten really into chess, and love chess. And I play a bunch of board games with my friends. We play just like a lot of the current You know, biggest hits for those who know. You know, we've been playing games like Carcassonne for years, and like Blood Rage, and we were just playing a few games that I had just learned how to play recently. Dominion, we play as settler, so we love games, and so, you know, I love Pokemon so much. It'd be interesting for me to like actually get into the card game. I did play Magic the Gathering like a little bit, and did enjoy it, so it's something I've thought about getting more into eventually. I want Joe from Omnipoke to teach me how to play. Joe TV Joe TV asks, what are the collectible Pokemon cards that have the smallest number printed? I've seen estimations in the billions for first edition. Other card games don't come close to that. So I don't know about billions. Not sure where you got those estimations specifically, but I don't know. Generally speaking, my instinct is something like Team Rocket has the most, followed closely by Fossil, and the gyms. Then the gyms and Jungle seem to be like close behind. Then first edition base. Then the first edition Neos, I think. Then the E series, and then even maybe the Gold Stars in that era, the Nintendo EX. So, but like no one really knows. That's the general order, but like E series, Neos, and like original Nintendo EX are probably the lowest. And that's based on just the pop reports, the amount of cards I see in collections, the amount of sales data there was, how big the card game was, how big the Pokemon Company, and the amount of like booster boxes we see out there. So hopefully that helps. So many, Blitzford says, so many things for E-Series, even at PSA 9 is under Pop 200. All it takes is 200 people in the world who want the PSA 9, and none are, yeah. E-Series has very low pops. Even in the 9s, even though they're generally easier to grade. So the breakdown from 10s to 9s is a bit better than a lot of WotC sets, outside of the regular hollows from like Expedition, some of those. And then your occasional hollow from Aquapolis too. Skyridge tends to be the easiest. But you have to look at the individual cards, because there's some cards that are harder, depending on the card. So some people saying, yeah, Logan might be bored already. He's bored already with Pokemon. Yeah, maybe. I mean, my like totally who knows, like just guess, I guess. If I know I have a channel, so I shouldn't just like throw out guesses, but like I feel like he probably just like doesn't want to be known as the Pokemon dude, and he's trying to be like have a more like adult, cool, well-rounded image, and he doesn't want he worries that if his image gets put too much into Pokemon dude, he's not going to appeal as much to as broad of an audience. And I think his podcast now is really trying to make him more adult and appear more adult. And I wonder if it's a branding thing and a concern that they've looked at. So even though the Pokemon videos did so well, and I think obviously connects him to so many fans, I think he doesn't want to be just the Pokemon dude. I think he loves Pokemon, but he also does all these sorts of things. So that might be cynical of me that he's very into branding and these sorts of things, but that's what I feel. That'd be my like best guess. Because at the end of the day, like, let's be honest, he's a brand. That's what he sells. That's what makes him money, is his brand. Vadim D asks, in your opinion, why did stamp collecting die? So I don't really know the history of stamp collecting too much. I think it's probably just the answer. You know, I know that my grandparents had a stamp collection. My dad, I think, wasn't very interested in stamps already, but I know that people still collected stamps. I think it's the type of thing that, like, every generation, like, there's something that the collectors gravitate towards. Because I think that, you know, there's truth that to some degree, there are just a certain amount of collectors in every generation. There are a certain amount of people who really enjoy collecting certain items, completing certain items, having back items from their childhood, that sort of thing. And so I think that that it just they didn't market stamps probably in a collectible way to get more generations into it, right? Or to get my generation into stamps. So it's why it's so important if you're sort of a long-term investor in Pokemon, you want the Pokemon company to market the product to kids and to every generation of kids to keep the kids into it. Because as long as the kids are really into it, they're going to be collectors from each generation. I think the worry is that although kids like it now, are they as into it as we were when we were kids? Or are they more into Fortnite dances? And things like that. And are they going to what is the thing that is going to connect them to their childhood? Are they going to have the same connection and mania as we do? And I think that's I think it's unlikely. I think it's pretty unlikely. That doesn't mean that they're not going to collect and be interested in it, particularly if the market's already very established. Because when a market is established and people are interested in it, it attracts other people to be interested. It's exciting. It brings people in, and it makes it easy and enjoyable. So new markets becoming established, there's sort of an inertia that they have to push through. So if us older people really establish this market over time, it'll be easier for younger people to join it, and it'll be probably more enjoyable and less stressful. Okay, so people are talking a little bit about like the nostalgia for the kids and these sorts of things. Yeah. For someone on a budget, so Metra Al asks, for someone on a budget, do you recommend buying single cards or packs? So it depends on your goals. So if your goals are a player, then generally just buying all the singles, or maybe opening one booster box would be the best bet. If you're trying to collect, to just buy the playable cards that you need for a specific deck. If you want to, that's clearly cheaper. If you want to, if you are a collector and your goal is to collect the entire set, which I'm going to assume maybe that's what you're talking about here for someone who wants to complete a complete set, I think generally a good strategy is buying like one, maybe two booster boxes to get, the commons, uncommons. Depends how big the set is. But if you can manage to get, if it's a small set, you might manage to get all of it in one booster box, or almost all of it, outside of the chase cards, outside of all of the, the shinings from the set, or the rainbow cards, or whatever's going on in Pokemon at that time, the amazing rares now. So I think that buying a booster box, getting all of the commons and uncommons, all of the quote unquote bulk that you need to complete the set and that you enjoy looking at, and because there's a lot of bulk that I love, that the cards that I think are beautiful and undervalued and underappreciated by people. Not undervalued in terms of maybe price, so in that sense not undervalued, but undervalued in terms of like their just enjoyment and appreciation, and respect for the artist who drew it. And there's so much money hype that like people aren't like necessarily looking as much at the art and learning the different artists and all this sorts of stuff, right? They're just running to that Charizard. So I think that buying the booster box, knocking all that out, and then buying the rest of the cards as singles online. And I think that from like TCG players, generally a good source for that. eBay is okay. If you happen to be able to buy them in like a big lot, that can save you money too, rather than buying them individually. So yeah, a lot of it's just kind of doing the math and figuring out what's the cheapest. And it depending on the set, it may also change from set to set. And depending on how lucky you get in terms of if you do open a booster box and you happen to pull the rarest card. Or most expensive. All right, so we've got about 10 minutes left, guys. I'm not going to be able to get to all the questions as usual. I'll try to get through a few more here. Okay, thoughts on Gold Star card prices. So I talked a little bit about Gold Stars before. I don't know the exact prices right now. They don't sell that much, so there isn't as much data on them, generally speaking. So I apologize. I don't know like the prices offhand, like specifically what they're going for right now. I'm hearing certain offers for certain cards here and there. Like I heard an offer for like the Rayquaza for like 9,000 something, things like that for PSA 9. Which is like that was going for like $900 all day. $1,000 all day before any of the spike happened. So that's 10 times price increase, right? So they've moved up a lot. A lot of the cards have moved up a lot. A lot of the cards have moved up that much in price, believe it or not. And I think that they are good because there aren't that many of them. There aren't going to be that many of them. There isn't going to be new supply on the market. Very likely of those. Those pop reports, I think, are going to be pretty sturdy, particularly after the next 6-7 months, because there's just not that much product left in the world of that compared to other things. So even though these YouTubers do continue to open it up here and there, there just isn't that much product, and the gold stars are super hard to pull. Like the pull rates are obviously like way more difficult, right? We're talking about like 1 in 72 or something like that, depending on the gold star. 1 in 40 for the Pop Series gold stars from those Pop Series packs, from the Pop Series 5 packs. So I love the gold stars. I love the art. So the gold stars and the E series were cards that I never knew existed when I was a kid, and those were the first 2 English cards that I learned of and that I really wanted. So I wanted the crystals, I wanted the regular hollows and the crystals from E series, and I wanted the gold stars. And then I saw like the regular EX cards from the original Nintendo EX era, and then I really wanted those cards too. So that was sort of my order. And then once I sort of accomplished a lot of those goals, then I started getting more into Japanese and buying some more Japanese. So Carly Gill asks, if you had money on the sidelines, would you be waiting for the bubble to deflate more, or are we getting close to seeing people panic sell more? So I would, what I am doing is I am selling some doubles and some cards that I think are overvalued or inflated that I don't care as much about. I'm not going to go specifically into the exact cards. It's just, it's a little bit too much for this, but I feel like I'm already giving you guys hopefully like huge value and just being as transparent as I am. So, so I'm doing that, a little bit here and there, and I have been buying a little bit here and there, but very, I'm looking for very specific things, very specific cards, very, things that I either don't think are going to retrace that much, or that I think are quite undervalued based on the current market. So those are the 2 things I'm looking for. So maybe that will be helpful, and I'll repeat that. 2 things I'm looking for. I'm looking for things that I think are undervalued in the current market, but they have to be considerably undervalued in the current market, or I think that they're not going to retrace at all or that much. And, it's common sense, but I think that it's good to hear those things. And hopefully for a lot of you, that'll be a good, that's the era I think we're entering into Pokemon right here in this instability. So I think hedging against that risk and that downside makes a lot of sense. As far as holding cash and holding money, that's also would make sense. So, you could do all of it, right? You could hold some cash, some money. You could buy some of those cards, and you could sell some that you think are going to go down. You could do all of that at once, or any piece of it, So Mr. Bank says WotC will go for more than double this time next year. Anything is possible. So it's possible we see some correction, some stabling, and then we hit another huge influx. I think it's unlikely that that's going to be the pattern. I think more likely that a lot of the growth is going to need to happen all at once, rather than like it's just going to cool off and then in a little bit we're going to see another huge amount of growth. I think it might be years till we see huge growth again, type of thing. Just by how markets tend to move and how the psychology of markets tend to move, unless a lot more influencers get in or something hypes it up. There's some other factor that hypes it up even more. Logan Paul getting into Pokemon and Gary Vee getting into Pokemon was, humongous in terms of for this hobby, in terms of like the hobby's growth, in terms of the value. Tyler asks, when will we get an EX era spike? So those cards have already gone up, quite a bit. I think you mean original Nintendo EX era. Like, nothing has not spiked quite a bit during this period. So I don't have like the exact numbers on how much they've gone up, but I can tell you like I have a few of like the EX Charizard, for example, from like red green, fire red leaf green, and I was buying them for like 140, 150 in PSA 9, and I bought like a bunch of them, or I think I might have three or four, and I bought them because I thought that was just like a really great price for a Charizard. I just knew that there weren't going to be that many of, and I think those cards, I don't even know how much those cards are now. Someone could let me know, but certainly a lot more than that. At least triple, quadruple, maybe 5 times, maybe 8 times, maybe 10 times. Wouldn't be surprised if those are selling for 1,000. I have no idea. I can tell you if that card, when we compared that card to like the Rainbow Rare Charizard or the Hyper, any of these modern Charizards, like I would so much rather have that card for a similar price than those cards. And so when I see, that's the type of thing I look for when I think like the amount of the art on this card's incredible. It's much older, it's much rarer, it's much scarcer. It was from a much earlier time period in Pokemon that's always going to be more historic. Everything is better about this card, and yet this card, from those value standpoints that I talk about on this channel, but then this card is going for more right now. Like, that's the type of stuff I look for. All right. And I like the Rainbow Rare Charizard, from Burning Shadows, and I own those cards too because I like them. So Matt Corn says, so as you know, I'm a modern investor collector. I generally only hold a few nice cards for grading, but will never buy vintage. Yeah, I mean, whatever you enjoy doing. I think that for long-term investing, I definitely would only do vintage, to be completely honest with you, Matt. But for short-term, if you're a short-term investor, short-term flipper, there can be a lot of heat and money to be made around modern. Most of the businesses, right? You can be a business. Pokemon businesses make their money off of new product generally. Their older, more expensive product is a small amount of what they make. They make money. Someone like Rudy from Alpha Investments, like they make money selling at slight margins all of the new booster boxes over and over and over again, and that automatic guaranteed profit is there for them, and that's what they do over and over, and they have to sell a lot of volume to make up for it. But so Haunter Gengar asks, oh no, wait, sorry, Shark Tooth asks, so I'm gonna answer 5 more questions. Okay, guys? All right, Sharktooth asks, will the increase of scammers selling fake cards and resealed packs and boxes drive collectors away and bring the market down? Yeah, I think what happens with scammers, and it makes people more afraid to do business. They don't trust the market. They don't trust the prices. They don't trust other people. And when that happens, items become a lot less liquid. Now, that may or may not hurt the prices, but it certainly hurts the liquidity of your items. And so your ability to like sell out of your positions if you need the money becomes more difficult. So I think that is the concern there. Now, separate from just that specific concern, one big sign of bubbles is increased fraud, manipulative activities, all these sorts of things, and that is because people don't trust that they can make money in a straight way. They feel the need to sort of cheat and manipulate in order to make money, and so there's that piece because they don't actually trust the market themselves, and then the second part of that is that people, shoot, I just lost my train of thought. All right, I'll just leave it there. I'm getting very tired, guys. I'm going to have to end the stream very soon for sure. My mind is going. All right. It's pretty tough answering nonstop questions, Pokemon questions for 2 hours and talking for 2 hours straight. It's pretty difficult to keep my brains going, my brain straight. All right. Haunting Gengar asks, will Pokemon's 25th anniversary help the market for vintage cards? I I think that one thing I've talked about is that, and this is very true for investing in general, is a lot of the time perceived future events have already been factored into the prices. So people, because a lot of people said that there's going to be a lot of hype and a lot of new people are going to come back in with the 25th, it increased the prices today on that future, on the idea that it's going to be good. So for example, you can see this in the stock market all the time, right? Like news comes out that like a vaccine is going to come out, right? And so people think, okay, well, the vaccine is going to come out, we're going to get back to normal, and that means that people are going to start going to hotels and are going to start going to, Disney World again, and are going to start going on cruise ships. And so all of those stocks really went up a lot, not because those companies were making more money yet, but because of the news that they were probably going to make more money in the future. So all of this is about predicting the future. And so because we all know that the 25th anniversary is coming, the vast majority of that is already in the market unless they do better than expectation. So now they could also do worse than expectation. Let's say the 25th anniversary is a dud. It's not that great. It doesn't bring that many people in. The market's going to go down because people think it's going to be good. But let's say it's amazing. They come out with an insane promo that's extremely popular. Then it could be very good. So what you want to do is not just think on the level of like, the 25th anniversary is coming out, that's going to be good. You want to think, are people underestimating the effect of the 25th? Do they think is it actually going to be better than they think, or are people overestimating it? And that's how you want to invest. You want to, frankly, a lot of investing and value investing is perceiving and being aware of irrationality, of other people's irrationality, and then taking advantage of that. And it's kind of icky, right, in some way. And I think that's part of why I prefer doing these sort of like education, in some ways to help combat that. But that's a lot of what it is. That's a lot of what it is at the end of the day. It's a competition, and people are each trying to predict something, and you're trying to predict something off of someone else's predictions. It's gambling for sure. It's definitely gambling. Okay. So we've got 3 more questions now. Carly Gill, do you ever see digital collectibles cutting into the market share of cardboard, i.e., NBA Top Shot, etc.? So I don't really know. I'm not too. I think probably not. I'm not sure. I don't think I really have that much of an intelligent thing to say about this. I think that the question I ask is, are kids today going to be interested in having physical things, or are they going to be not interested? Are they going to not, are there still going to be new collectors in every generation, or are kids who are being brought up more on video games and never really collected as a child, if they don't at all, are they going to have that collector's mentality, or are they just going to want things that are efficient and cheap and fun, the new video games and things like that? I don't know. And so I think more about that. It's why are cards or or art or coins or antiques, things that tangible items that hold some either sentimental value or are beautiful in some way, you're attracted to it in some way, is that going to be a thing that continues on in the future? And as long as that is a thing that continues on in the future, the online version of that will not fill that void. So that's the way that I would think about it. Okay, 2 more questions. Cynis asks, how do you feel about sun and moon base being retail at the moment? Possibly a good product to keep sealed. Sun and Moon base is not a good product. There's nothing in it that's particularly exciting. The one thing it has going for it is it's the base set of the Sun and Moon period. So way down the line, if people have an affinity to the Sun and Moon period, maybe the base set, because it's the first box from that set, will have some collectability and some value. That's the only thing I can think about that box. But again, you guys know my feeling on Modern in general. I think it's going to be more like 90s sports cards and how it's all going for, you can't even sell there are lots of boxes from all sorts of TCGs that you can get for, they can't sell for anywhere close to retail. Okay, I'm looking for one more question. All right, guys, and then I'm going to have to end it for tonight. Okay, so it looks like Max has a question here, which will be the last question of the night. I apologize to everyone else who asked questions. You'll have to come back next time, and we'll see. I might do another stream this Sunday. It won't be 2 hours because I probably just won't have the time. But I might get back onto the Sunday schedule, or I might do them on Thursdays. We'll see. Those are usually my 2 freest days. But so Max asks, "Hi Jake, hope all is well." Thank you, Max. Things are good. I hope all is well with you too. Glad we could make up for Sunday's stream. Modern collecting / investing. Do you collect modern trophy cards, or any thoughts on those as long-term investments? Yeah. So I want to shout out a channel that I really like, Sakari. His channel, he did a recent video on trophies. I'm going to do a video on trophies too. His video was, I agreed with almost everything he said in his video, in terms of like what's rare, what's not rare, and these sorts of things. And he did talk a little bit about modern trophy cards. You have to know the release. So the thing about modern trophy cards being valuable, this is what I would keep in mind, okay? So they will be old one day. So they're not always going to have this newness to them. All right. And that's true for everything modern, right? Everything modern is not always going to be modern. But what's going to set it apart is it also rare, and does it stand out? And so those are the things you need. So if Pokemon keeps making more and more and more trophies over time, there might be a lot of trophies and a lot of different modern trophies that, like, which ones do you buy? You know, which ones do you want, right? Which ones really retain their value? Which ones transcend over the other ones? It's the same thing with modern sets. Which modern set's going to transcend the other modern sets? That's the type of mindset I would always have. And so what's going to make it transcend? The coolness of the release, like what tournament? So I love the Worlds tournaments. I think that they're the biggest one. They're, you know, everyone comes together. The art on those cards are unbelievable. They tie into the specific year to where the tournament is going on. Like, they have all of the things I look for in something that is going to stand the test of time, and in something that is a set. Because each year forever, hopefully, Pokemon will make another one. And there's always going to be that connection to all of the older years, and Psyduck is in all of them. And to me, that really, really sets those apart from all of the other, like, national championship trophy, like the other, like, smaller trophy stamped cards that you might find. So that's the type of stuff that I would keep in mind and what sets it apart. So it needs to have coolness of art, you know, the release, and something that makes it stand out, and then rarity. So trying to know the population. So how many of them were actually sent out, okay? All right, so that is going to be everything for today. I will also put a link to his channel, Sakari's channel, if people want to check that out. He's such a great guy. Love his channel. I'm going to be trying to do more of that because I really want to support and help grow people who are, like, putting in a lot of work and really trying to give really accurate, useful content to people. Okay? So thank you all so much for joining the stream, and I will see you all